The Midnight Intruder. Riker Vale hadn't survived 15 years as an independent pilot by being careless. Something was wrong. The subtle vibration in his ship's deck plates told him someone had bypassed the outer security protocols. He moved silently through the darkened corridor of his vessel, the Star Chaser, his practiced footsteps making no sound on the metal floor. The intruder was good. They'd managed to slip past 3 layers of security without triggering any obvious alarms. But Riker had modifications even the best scanners couldn't detect. The hair on the back of his neck stood up as he approached the bridge, hearing the almost imperceptible sound of fingers dancing across his navigation console. He drew his pulse pistol, the weapon humming to life with a subsonic whine only he could hear thanks to his neural augments. The bridge doors slid open silently, revealing a figure bathed in the soft blue glow of the holographic displays. Riker's breath caught. The intruder was unmistakably alien, tall and graceful with iridescent skin that shifted between deep indigo and emerald in the console's light. Long, silvery hair floated as if suspended in water, defying the ship's artificial gravity. She wore some kind of crystalline armor that seemed to absorb the light around it. "Step away from my ship's controls," Riker said quietly, his weapon trained on the center of her back. Slowly. The alien froze, her fingers hovering above the console. "I mean no harm," she said, her voice carrying an otherworldly harmonic that made his augments tingle. "But I cannot comply. The fate of billions depends on my completing this mission." "Heard that one before," Riker replied, though something in her voice gave him pause. "Turn around. Let's see who's trying to steal my ship." She turned, and Riker found himself staring into eyes like liquid mercury, lacking pupils or irises but somehow expressing a depth of emotion that caught him off guard. Her features were almost human, save for the subtle patterns of light that pulsed beneath her skin in time with what he assumed was her heartbeat. "I am Nyara Kal, last survivor of the Sentinel Order," she said, her chin lifting slightly. "And I'm not trying to steal your ship. I'm trying to save the galaxy from an ancient horror that has already consumed my world." "That's quite a claim," Riker said, not lowering his weapon but noting how she made no aggressive moves. "Got any proof?" "Look at your long-range sensors," she replied. "The Vale Nebula, you've noticed how it's been expanding?" Riker frowned. He had noticed. The massive purple-green cloud had been growing at an impossible rate over the past few months, consuming several outlying systems. The official explanation was a natural phenomenon, but... "That's not a nebula," Nyara continued, her voice dropping. "It's them. The Void Collective. They consume entire civilizations, turning organic life into energy to fuel their expansion. My people were meant to stand guard against their return, but we failed. I'm the only one left who knows the truth, who can still warn others. And you need my ship because the Star Chaser is the only vessel in this sector with quantum fold drive capabilities," she replied. "I've been watching, waiting. Your modifications aren't exactly legal, but they make your ship the only one fast enough to reach the Coalition worlds before it's too late." Riker's eyes narrowed. She knew too much about his ship, about him. "How long have you been following me?" A slight smile touched her luminescent lips. "Long enough to know you're not just another smuggler. The medical supplies you delivered to the mining colonies last month, when the official aid ships were delayed? The families you helped evacuate from the war zone in the Outer Rim? You hide it well, but you care more than you pretend to." He should shoot her. Or at least stun her and drop her at the nearest port. Getting involved in galaxy-spanning conspiracies was bad for business. Bad for survival. Instead, he found himself lowering his weapon slightly. "Show me." Nyara turned back to the console, her movements careful and deliberate. Her fingers danced across the controls, bringing up a series of deep space scans. The images showed the nebula's expansion, but overlaid with data he'd never seen before. Energy patterns, systematic movements, and at the edges. Those aren't stars going dark, he breathed, seeing the pattern for the first time. They're being consumed. Yes, Nyara said softly. And they're moving faster than ever before. If we don't reach the coalition worlds with proof of what's happening, billions more will die without ever knowing what hit them. Riker holstered his weapon, his mind racing. Everything in his experience told him this was trouble he didn't need. But if she was right? A warning klaxon shattered the moment. Proximity alerts screamed to life as multiple ships dropped out of hyperspace around them. They found me, Nyara whispered, her skin pulsing with faster patterns of light. The Void Collective's hunters. They cannot be allowed to take this information. Riker was already moving, sliding into the pilot's seat. Good thing this ship isn't just fast, he said, his hands flying over the controls. It's got a few other surprises. Strap in, Sentinel. If we're going to save the galaxy, first we need to survive the next few minutes. The Star Chaser came to life around them, engines humming with barely contained power. As the first enemy ships opened fire, Riker allowed himself a small smile. He hadn't survived 15 years as an independent pilot by playing it safe. Sometimes the biggest risks led to the most important missions. And somehow, watching Nyara take the weapon's controls with practiced ease, he knew this would be the most important mission of his life. Escape from Shadow Port. The Star Chaser burst through the debris field, its shields blazing with absorbed energy as Riker pushed the engines beyond their normal limits. Behind them, 3 sleek black vessels carved through space like predatory shadows, their weapon systems charging for another volley. They're not shooting to disable, Nyara called from the weapons station, her fingers dancing across the tactical display. They want us destroyed, along with the evidence. Good thing I never fly anywhere without a few tricks, Riker replied, his neural augments interfacing directly with the ship's systems. The Star Chaser's engine signature suddenly split into multiple patterns, creating phantom readings that confused their pursuers' targeting systems. Nyara's eyes widened as she watched the tactical display. Quantum echo projectors? Those are theoretical technology. Theory's more fun when you make it real, Riker grinned, executing a series of maneuvers that would have torn apart a standard ship. Speaking of theory, want to tell me more about these hunters while we're running for our lives? They're called the Shroud, Nyara explained, launching a spread of countermeasures to break the enemy's sensor lock. Biomechanical constructs created by the Void Collective to hunt down any who might expose their existence. They don't stop, don't tire, and don't show mercy. As if to emphasize her point, one of the pursuing vessels fired a weapon that warped space itself, trying to tear the Star Chaser apart at a quantum level. Riker's modifications barely held together against the assault. That's why you needed my ship specifically, he realized, rerouting power to strengthen their quantum field integrity. Standard drives would have been ripped apart by their weapons. Yes, Nyara admitted, her skin pulsing with faster patterns of light that he was beginning to recognize as stress. Your modifications are crude by my people's standards, but brilliantly effective. You've reinvented quantum field technology through intuition and experimentation. Crude? Riker laughed, executing another impossible turn. Sweetheart, crude is what keeps you alive when you can't afford fancy. Their banter was interrupted by a direct hit that rattled the ship. Warning lights flashed across multiple systems as the quantum field generators struggled to compensate. Secrets of the nebula. Shadowport's lower levels smelled of recycled air and desperation. Riker led Nyara through winding corridors, his augmented senses scanning for threats while appearing casual to any observers. Her crystalline armor had been covered with a shabby cloak, but there was no hiding the ethereal grace of her movement or the subtle glow of her skin. Your contact is trustworthy? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Vex? Absolutely not, Riker replied with a slight smirk. But she hates the Coalition more than she likes credits, and she's the best data analyst in the outer systems. They reached a door marked with glyphs that shifted and changed, defending against electronic surveillance. Riker placed his palm against the scanner, and the door dissolved into smoke. Inside, screens covered every surface, displaying data streams that would drive an unaugmented human mad. In the center of the chaos sat a figure with metallic scales instead of skin, multiple cybernetic arms moving in perfect coordination. "You're supposed to be dead," Vex said without looking up, her voice carrying both organic and synthetic tones. "There's a rather impressive bounty on your head." "Good to see you too," Riker replied. "We need your help with something." "We?" Vex's head rotated 180 degrees, compound eyes focusing on Nyara. "Fascinating. A sentinel. I thought your kind were extinct." Nyara stepped forward, removing her cloak. "You know of my people?" "I know many things people wish I didn't," Vex replied. "Including why you're here. The Veil Nebula's expansion isn't natural. The data patterns are too ordered, too purposeful." "Show her," Riker said to Nyara. "Everything." Nyara produced a crystal from beneath her armor, its surface swimming with complex patterns. Vex accepted it with one of her mechanical arms, interfacing directly with the data structure. The screens around them exploded with information, star charts, energy readings, ancient texts in languages Riker had never seen. At the center, a massive structure began to take shape, its geometry defying normal space. "The world engine," Nyara explained, her voice heavy with dread. "The Void Collective's ultimate weapon. It doesn't just consume civilizations, it rewrites reality itself. They've built one before, in another galaxy. There's nothing left of that galaxy now, not even light. The nebula expansion is a cover," Vex concluded, her cybernetic arms moving faster as she processed the data. "They're assembling the components in plain sight, using the energy of consumed worlds to power their construction." "How long?" Riker asked, studying the projected timeline. "Weeks, at most," Nyara replied. "Once it's operational, this entire sector of space will be rewritten according to their design. Organic life will be transformed into energy, consciousness into fuel." Vex's screens shifted, showing a new pattern. "There's more. The collective isn't working alone. They have allies within the coalition itself. High-ranking officials, corporate leaders, even military commanders. They've been promised survival in exchange for cooperation." Riker's augments highlighted names and connections, building a web of conspiracy that reached into the highest levels of power. "That's why standard channels won't work. We can't trust anyone in authority." "Not quite anyone," Vex interjected, bringing up a new display. "There's a resistance movement, operating from a hidden base in the Omega Nebula. They've been gathering evidence, building a coalition of their own. But they lack proof of the world engine's existence." "The proof is in that crystal," Nyara said. "But reaching them won't be easy. The Omega Nebula is surrounded by collective forces, disguised as coalition security patrols. Getting through their blockade would be suicide," Vex agreed. "Unless what?" Riker asked, recognizing the tone in her synthetic voice. "The collective's quantum field technology operates on specific frequencies. With the right modifications, you could tune your ship's signature to appear as one of theirs. Hide in plain sight." Nyara's skin pulsed with rapid patterns. "The crystalline matrix in my armor, it's attuned to their quantum frequencies. We could use it to calibrate the Star Chaser's field generators." "It's risky," Riker said, running calculations through his augments. "One wrong harmonic and we'd tear ourselves apart at the quantum level." "Since when do you shy away from risk?" Vex asked, her compound eyes glittering with amusement. Before Riker could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. Emergency shutters slammed down over Vex screens as Shadowport security systems engaged. Multiple ships dropping out of hyperspace, Vex announced, interfacing directly with the station's sensors. Energy signatures match known shroud vessels, but they're not hiding anymore. They're here in force. They're not just hunting us now, Nyara realized, her mercury eyes wide. They're going to destroy Shadowport, eliminate everyone who might have seen the data. Not if we give them a better target, Riker said, his mind already formulating a plan. Vex, can you get that quantum frequency calibration done in the next 5 minutes? For anyone else, impossible. For me, barely adequate. Go. I'll transmit the calculations to your ship. As they rushed back through Shadowport's corridors, now filling with panicked beings of all species, Riker felt Nyara's hand grasp his. Her touch sent an electric current through his augments, but the sensation in his chest was entirely human. I'm sorry, she said as they ran. I never meant to bring this destruction to your people. They're not my people, Riker replied, though they both knew it wasn't entirely true. And destruction was coming whether we fought it or not. At least now we have a chance to stop it. They reached the Star Chaser just as the first explosions rocked the station. As Riker prepared for emergency launch, he saw Nyara looking back at the chaos they were leaving behind, her ethereal features marked by determination and regret. We'll make it right, he promised, reaching for her hand. All of it. She turned to him, and in her mercury eyes he saw something that made his artificial and organic hearts skip a beat. Together, she said softly. The Star Chaser broke free of its docking clamps, accelerating into space as Shadowport erupted in quantum fire behind them. The shroud vessels moved to intercept, their weapons charging with reality-warping power. But this time, Riker and Nyara weren't running. This time, they had a plan, a destination, and something worth fighting for. The real question was whether they'd survive long enough to see it through. Breaking the blockade. The Star Chaser drifted through the quantum wake of a massive coalition battlecruiser, its modified field generators perfectly mimicking the signature of a shroud vessel. In the cockpit, Riker's augments interfaced directly with the ship's systems, maintaining the precise frequency that kept them hidden in plain sight. Nyara monitored the tactical display, her iridescent skin dimmed to its lowest luminescence. 3 more patrol groups ahead. The Omega Nebula is the most heavily guarded sector I've ever seen. They're scared, Riker replied, making minute adjustments to their approach vector. The Resistance base has been a thorn in their side for months. But they can't launch a full assault without revealing themselves to the Coalition. The battlecruiser above them suddenly powered up its primary weapons. Riker held his breath, but the massive ship was targeting a distant asteroid field, conducting routine exercises. The Star Chaser's quantum disguise held. Vex modifications are working perfectly, Nyara observed, her mercury eyes reflecting the holographic displays. Almost too perfectly. The collective's technology shouldn't be this compatible with human systems. Riker had been thinking the same thing. Unless they've encountered humans before. Way before. What do you mean? Those ancient texts in Vex data, some of them mentioned Earth. Not by name, but the descriptions matched. A world of quantum potential, inhabited by beings of chaos and creativity. He paused, letting the implications sink in. What if we weren't quarantined by the elder races to protect the galaxy from us? They were protecting you, Nyara whispered, understanding dawning. Hiding Earth until humanity was ready to face the collective. My people weren't the only sentinels. Their theoretical discussion was interrupted by a proximity alert. A shroud vessel was approaching on an intercept course, its quantum signature nearly identical to their fake one. They're hailing us, Nyara reported, her skin pulsing with tension patterns. We knew this might happen, Riker said, activating the comm system. Ready? Nyara nodded, interfacing with his neural augments. Together, they projected a quantum data burst that exactly matched Shroud communications protocols. For 3 agonizing seconds, there was no response. The shroud vessel adjusted course, continuing its patrol pattern. They'd passed the inspection. That was too close, Nyara breathed, but Riker was already moving them toward a new sensor shadow. We've got bigger problems, he said, highlighting an energy reading on the tactical display. Look at these power signatures. They're not just guarding the nebula. They're feeding it, Nyara finished, her voice tight. The resistance base, they don't know they're surrounded by components of the world engine. Every patrol ship, every defense platform. They're not just building it in secret, Riker realized. They're building it everywhere. The whole sector is becoming part of the machine. A new alert flashed across their displays. The battlecruiser above them was moving, creating a gap in the patrol pattern. It was now or never. Hold on, Riker warned, pushing their quantum disguise to its limits. The Star Chaser accelerated through the opening, riding the boundary between normal space and the nebula's quantum distortions. For a moment, reality itself seemed to blur around them. Riker's augments screamed warnings as multiple field harmonics threatened to tear the ship apart. Nyara's crystalline armor resonated with the quantum frequencies, creating a feedback loop that stabilized their trajectory. They burst through the quantum barrier into a pocket of clear space. Ahead of them, hidden within the nebula's swirling energies, a massive station slowly rotated. The resistance base. We made it, Nyara said, but her victory was short-lived. New alerts flashed across their screens as defense platforms locked onto their position. Attention unidentified vessel, a voice crackled through their comm, you have entered restricted space. Power down and prepare to be boarded. Wait. Nyara transmitted. We carry vital information about the Void Collective. Authorization code, Sentinel Prime 709. Silence filled the comm channel. Weapon systems remained locked on their position. That code, the voice finally returned, hasn't been used in over 1,000 years. Because my people fell, Nyara replied. I am the last, and I bring proof of humanity's true role in the coming war. More silence. Riker's hand hovered over the quantum drive controls, ready to attempt an escape if necessary. But something told him to wait. Quantum signature confirmed, a new voice joined the channel. My God, it really is Sentinel tech. Let them through. The defense platforms powered down, and a docking vector appeared on their navigation display. As they approached the station, Riker noticed Nyara's hands trembling slightly. Having second thoughts, he asked softly. She turned to him, her mercury eyes meeting his augmented ones. The opposite. For the first time since my people fell, I feel hope. The collective thinks they can use humanity's quantum potential as a power source, but they don't understand. Your chaos, your creativity, your ability to defy their perfect patterns. We're the weapon they never saw coming, Riker finished, understanding at last. The Star Chaser docked with the resistance base, but both Riker and Nyara knew this wasn't the end of their journey. The real battle was just beginning, and somewhere out in the nebula, the world engine continued to grow. As they prepared to disembark, Riker felt Nyara's hand slip into his. The touch sent quantum harmonics through his augments, but the warmth in his chest was purely human. Together, they stepped forward to face whatever came next, knowing that the fate of multiple species now rested on the truth they carried. The truth that humanity's greatest weakness, its unpredictability, might be the galaxy's greatest hope. Race against time. The resistance base shuddered as another quantum surge rippled through the Omega Nebula. In the command center, holographic displays showed the world engine's components aligning into their final configuration. Time to full activation? Riker asked, his augments processing the data streams. 17 minutes, the resistance commander replied. Once the quantum matrix stabilizes, there's no stopping it. Nyara studied the tactical display, her crystalline armor resonating with the engine's frequencies. The primary control node is here, she indicated a nexus point where multiple energy streams converged. If we can disrupt it, the entire network will collapse. That's suicide, the commander argued. The quantum distortions would tear any ship apart before it got close. Not if we use the distortions against them, Riker said, his augments already calculating possibilities. The Star Chaser's quantum field generators, we can reverse the polarity, create a cascade effect. You'd have to get within 100 meters of the control node. Nyara's mercury eyes met his. The ship wouldn't survive. No, Riker agreed. But humanity would. The command center erupted in chaos as new contacts appeared on their screens. The Shroud fleet had found them, dozens of vessels emerging from quantum space. They're not trying to hide anymore, Nyara observed. This is their endgame. Riker reached for her hand, feeling the quantum harmonics pulse between them. Then let's give them a finale they'll never forget. The Resistance fleet launched, buying them time as the Star Chaser made its final preparations. Riker's modifications had pushed the ship's systems far beyond their original specs, but for what they were about to attempt, even that wouldn't be enough. The crystalline matrix in my armor, Nyara said as they reached the cockpit. It can amplify your quantum field, give us the surge we need. It would burn out your armor's protective systems, Riker protested. The feedback could kill you. She touched his face, her iridescent skin glowing brighter. Some things are worth dying for. Their eyes met, and in that moment, all the unspoken things between them passed in a single look. Then they were moving, the Star Chaser launching into the chaos of battle. The Resistance fleet engaged the Shroud vessels, energy weapons cutting through space as quantum fields collided. Riker piloted them through the devastation, using the battle's chaos to mask their approach. Multiple targeting locks, Nyara reported from Tactical. They know what we're trying to do. Good, Riker grinned, pushing the engines harder. Let them come. The Star Chaser dove through the quantum storms surrounding the world engine's control node. Reality itself bent around them as Nyara's armor interfaced with their shields, creating a bubble of stable space in the midst of chaos. Warning indicators screamed as the ship's systems began to fail. Hull plating disintegrated under the quantum stress, but they pressed on. Closer. Closer. Now! Riker shouted as they reached the optimal position. Nyara initiated the power surge, her armor's crystals blazing with light as they channeled impossible energies. The quantum field generators overloaded, releasing a wave of destructive energy that rippled through the world engine's carefully ordered patterns. Where perfect geometry had existed, chaos now reigned. Chain reactions cascaded through the massive structure. Shroud vessels caught in the quantum backwash dissolved into their component atoms. The nebula itself began to collapse. We did it, Nyara whispered, her voice weak as her armor's power faded. We actually did it. Riker pulled her close as the Star Chaser's systems failed around them. Through the viewport, they watched the world engine tear itself apart, its perfectly ordered destruction a testament to humanity's chaotic influence on the universe. The Resistance fleet is moving to pick us up, he said, checking his few remaining functional displays. Think we changed the galaxy enough for one day? Nyara laughed softly, her mercury eyes meeting his augmented ones. The Void Collective never understood. They sought to eliminate chaos, to impose perfect order. But it's the chaos that makes life worth living. The unexpected connections. The impossible chances. The beautiful alien who tried to steal my ship. The augmented human who helped her save the galaxy. As emergency tractors locked onto their dying vessel, Riker and Nyara shared one last look. They both knew this wasn't the end, the Void Collective would return, and other threats would rise to challenge the delicate balance between order and chaos. But for now, they had won. Humanity's potential had been unleashed, and the galaxy would never be the same. As rescue ships approached through the quantum storm, Riker held Nyara close, knowing that whatever came next, they would face it together. After all, some chaos was worth preserving.